This is Tom Kane, the voice of Yoda in Star Wars The Clone Wars, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
Where have you been? I was on a repair. It's come out getting back.
You check in?
Not yet.
Things are getting really organized around here.
Tell me about it.
That's what I came here for. That is what I've been trying to do since I got here. That is what you told me you wanted, and now there's evidence I have to beg for?
Most beings carry the things that shape them, they carry the past. But some, very few. Your pilot. They're gathering as they go. There's a purpose to it.
I know you. I know how deeply you believe in what we're doing. We're not Luthen's puppets anymore.
This is James Arnold Taylor, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. I have a good feeling about this.
We are back, friends. It is time to talk about the next episode of Andor. This is the 7th episode in Season 2. The episode is titled Messenger. I am your host of Coffee with Kenobi, Dan Zer, and I am joined today by a returning guest. He has been with us for many episodes as we look at Season 2 of Andor. John Heil. John, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much, Dan. It's a privilege to be here once again. I'm really looking forward to talking about episode 7 with you.
I am too, John. This is, for my money, and I've said this from the get-go, 7, 8, and 9 are the peak of Star Wars storytelling.
Sure, absolutely.
These three are tremendous, and it kicks off with Messenger. So let's start it off. Do you have one word to describe Messenger and overall thoughts on the episode?
You know, I do. And this time, I'm actually kind of happy with my word.
Okay.
I'm not usually happy with my word, but this time I am. And that word is awakening. And my rationale is this. Throughout this episode, which is just sort of a building of pressure, if you will. A lot of episodes can be described that way, but in this instance, it, as to Ghorman, as to the sort of the evil of the Empire itself, and even as to Cassian, you see these realizations in characters start to happen. I mean, everybody seems to start grasping the scope, or in many instances, just how bad things are about to get, or how they may get. And as to Cassian, perhaps his level of importance. I mean, you see sort of the hair on the back of the neck of multiple characters all happening through this episode, and I love it.
I love that too. That's an excellent intro. I'm not sure about my word. I like the idea of you basically, you didn't say this, but you were basically saying it's like, take this episode. This is the episode where you take the soda bottle and you shake it and you're about to open it up because things are about to erupt. But my word for this is frightening. This is a frightening episode because when you really dial down into the nuance of what is happening on Ghor with the Ghorman people, or the Ghormans with the Ghor people, it is so incredibly scary how the Empire is taking things that aren't happening and making them as a license for them to continue to invade and take over. We see that Partagaz says to Daedra, look, they've decided there's no substitute for this mineral. So sorry, Ghormans, you're done for. We're just going to take it over. This planet's going to be a husk. So they create these fake bombings and agitators, and there's so much manipulation going on in the transverse that with Cassian still being his most Andor stubborn self, but there's always a reason for what he does. He still has a hard time believing in certain aspects of things. He keeps things very close to the vest, and it's understandable because of the depth and breadth of his character. But there are certain moments in this episode, John, where I think most creatives would just do anything to have the 5 minutes of dialogue that is present in different sequences. And it's brilliant. It's a brilliant episode. It really is.
I love how it starts. Okay, now we're BBY2.
Yes.
Go right to Yavin base, almost fully developed. Now we recognize everything.
Pretty cool.
It's a, put a big smile on my face. Oh, here's Willman back, and so that's a happy sort of reunion with him. You interestingly see now on Yavin how everybody lives and sort of where they live, and it isn't just the temples really that we always think of. No, that doesn't make any sense. No, there'd have to be all these areas where people actually live and then go to work and do all these other things.
Yeah.
And so we see all that. We have a tender moment with Cassian and Bix that, and you find out he's kind of injured. Just sort of the initial setup of Yavin 4. I love that as a start to all this because now a year has passed.
I agree. And I was going to ask you about that. This has come up a few times, but every arc there's a year between. And I felt for the most part, that's more sort of a decorative pronunciation. Like there's really not a lot of evidence here. There sort of is because Cassian's been hurt. We don't see how he's been hurt. And at first blush, you might say, well, they're just throwing that in there just as a plot device, but it's not really important. But it is important because it ends up being sort of a crisis of faith. To a degree, I don't think we're expected to believe that Cassian has to believe in the Force. It's really one of the only times the Force is mentioned in this entire series, which I think is pretty cool because it still holds our attention. But the sequence when he and Bix meet with that Force healer, Bix sets him up to, this is the first one I'm going to bring up in this episode. And he is not interested in this. He thinks it's a joke. He thinks it's a gimmick. But then after the conversation that they have, when Cassian leaves, he's, I'll let you know. He runs away. He does basically run away. And Bix says, you scared him. And she says, I'm sorry. And she says, that's not easy to do. So What is it do you think that he's afraid of? I mean, she kind of alludes to it, but what do you think?
Well, I think, my short answer is I don't know. I think it's interesting the context, though. If I may go back just a moment first, if I could, is Willman is basically saying, "Hey, Luthen wants to know if you're ready to work." So it shows that they haven't done anything for Luthen now for a long time. Clearly, there have been no missions. They've just been there. They had their sort of at the end of the last arc where they had the wonderful little scene where Bix is able to get revenge, and that apparently, as far as we know, is all they've done for Luthen in a year or so. So now Willman shows up, and all this, he's suddenly putting pressure on him to do more, and then you have what you just described. So is there a little? First of all, I think Cassian really doesn't believe in the Force. He seems more like in the Han Solo camp of all. It's a bunch of hooey. What are you talking about? And of course, you mentioned the Force healer. We kind of call her that. That word Force is never said in the episode. It's just some creepy person who's in the cafeteria, and people are lining up to talk to her, and he thinks it's baloney. So he kind of resents the idea of it. I don't know. Is there something in your mind that it kind of goes back to his childhood or something like that? That because it isn't just sort of that he's agnostic to it. He seems out and out hostile to it.
Agnostic is probably a good word. My guess is Cassian, being the guy that he is, he's not a big fan of fate because for the most part, besides Bix, he's had a pretty rough life. I mean, he's been, incarcerated and chased down, and he's been, he's killed people. He's been attacked. His mom died. His wife was tortured almost to death by the Empire. He's constantly on the run. He really can't put roots down anywhere. He has no reason to believe in the Force or anything that would be like karma or positive or faith filled. And I also think he's very resistant to the idea of being someone greater than the sum of his parts.
Yeah.
Because he's not, first of all, he's pretty deferential to that. I mean, he hates the Empire. He knows he's good at what he does, real good at what he does, better than most. But I get the sense that Cassian is not the sort of guy that would like to stick out his chest and say, I'm the hero. Right?
I agree. I think he's more mission centered, right? Like if he agrees to do it, I'm going to go get it done. And then if there's another one and I want to do it, I'll do that. But the sort of, at least in this point of his development, that the greater, like the existence of the Force almost doesn't matter, and sort of the greater struggle to him is maybe not yet as fully developed either.
And also there's this interesting dichotomy between, he really wants Woman to tell him where he's been. Woman is incredibly resistant to revealing anything, doesn't even address it at all. And then, so Cassian's like, we're good here, things are happening. But Woman is skeptical because Woman is still very much Team Luthen. Cassian, I think, as much as he respects Luthen in his heart of hearts, I still think he has a hard time trusting people. I mean, I don't know that he was crazy with how things were handled with Bix earlier, and him being mad that Luthen went and visited Bix when he was gone, when Cassian was gone. And then Cassian's whole like, what do you mean I can leave the rebellion if I want to? But Drathan, is that his name? Drathan, Dodonna, and
isn't it Drayden?
Drayden, yes. I don't know why I said Drathan.
Draven.
Yes.
Draven.
Dear Draven. Yes. He says you can't just come. If I have to tell you when I'm coming and going, then I'm out. And he said, well, that time is coming soon. Yeah.
So
it's so great because they know, I think earlier it's either Wilman or Cassian says, do you want to fight or do you want to win? I think in that moment, Cassian sees winning as having an army assembling to fight the Empire, because you do need an army to fight the Empire. But Luthen wants to fight. Initially, Cassian was, famously or infamously known as spitting in the Empire's food. Not really having a big impact, right? But being an insurgent and somewhere almost like a bee or an ant at the Empire's picnic. But now with this army, it's this huge machine, and Cassian is a part of that, and he likes that. But Luthen doesn't trust. Woman's like, there's new faces all the time. There's new people coming and going all the time. How do you know who to trust? It's so great because, again, this is like you've got Mon Mothma, you've got Wilman, you've got Luthen, you've got Saw Gerrera, you've got all these different people, these different philosophies, and we all want the same thing. We have very different beliefs in how to make it happen. It's just it's so much more complicated and so much smarter than I could possibly explain it.
Well, and I think you hit on a couple of really good points, which is, first of all, Cassian wants to have it on his own terms. He wants to come and go as he pleases, which drives Draven nuts because that's
secure. That's secure.
Yeah. This is not what we do. If you want protection of Yavin, we got to know where you are on this, right? But also do you want to fight or do you want to win line? It shows that he is, in my mind, pretty in on the Yavin base idea, because what is it doing? It's still building up, and that's what we are doing and we'll still have to do for a while. Mm-hmm. So all these little things you want to do, cut it out. Let's just, as you said, let's just continue building our army. So he's kind of all over the place right now, I think.
He is. And I just love that because it's just, this is just such a much more, it makes me honestly want to learn more and refresh my memory on not only United States history, but world history. Because things like this have happened all throughout the globe. for hundreds of years, for centuries. And it's not so cut and dry.
No.
The humanity gets in the way, pride gets in the way, fear gets in the way. And then it all boils down to, what do we need to do? How are we going to do it? Who needs to know? And what information are we going to withhold? Like, communication seems to be, and like, there's even a great moment where Willman and Luthen, when they're back on Ghorman, they make a big production of talking about getting their comms set, right? We have to be able to communicate first. And that lack of communication sometimes is what can run things through a convoluted space and make things harder. But then again, what are your other choices? I don't even know if I'm making any sense. The more I talk about it, the more I'm just like, wow, this is so confusing, and I love that.
I think it's isn't that great that
it's
that
so
it
great.
is that complicated? Because
Yeah.
you mentioned world history. I've read books about the Revolutionary War, and it's not the soundbite all of us know it as. I mean, it took years.
Yes.
And there were shady characters, and there was this thing didn't go right, and that thing didn't go right, and it's just, there's just a lot to that, and so it makes this show that much more rich, that more realistic, because you could put together a soundbite about the Rebel Alliance, but through this, it's portrayed in such a great way that it transcends that, which is fantastic.
Absolutely. So undoubtedly, that was a really long tangent, but I think worth talking about, because there's just, it's very, very rich. And I agree with you. What a great thing that we have this complicated, well thought out, well crafted story. What's a major point you have on your list that you'd like to chat about?
Well, there's one of my favorite scenes is in this episode.
Okay.
And it is, there were a couple that were like back to back that are among my favorite, and they're just conversations. But I just love her, and I'm going to smush two together, and I'll try not to talk too long. But the first is,
it's a podcast. You can talk as long as you want.
Partagaz counseling Dedra
Mm-hmm.
on, and you already brought it up, the whole, hey, it's about to happen discussion. And he sees how uncomfortable she is. And isn't that amazing that Dedra is now uncomfortable with this? Dedra, who herself suggested that you need an insurgency you can count on to do the wrong thing. One of the indirect architects of all this. But now it's coming. Something bad is coming, and she's visibly nervous.
She's shaken. Yeah.
Yes. And so he counsels her that, hey, this is going to benefit the ISB and you personally, and everybody knows what a good job you're doing. And it plays to who Dedra is. You can tell how well he knows her, and she responds kind of to that, but you can tell she's still nervous. She's like, well, now they have weapons. And he said, well, we're counting on it. It almost looked like, to me for a moment, it's almost like her character had changed a little bit. She is so jaded normally, so cold, that is it just because she's there that she's a little more skittish? I don't know.
Oh,
but then, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Then right after it, then you have Syril show up, probably more confident than we've ever seen him ever. He's a different dude at this point, and he comes strutting in. He shows up looking for Dedra. He basically challenges an Imperial officer with no problem. Like, where is she? Is she back there? My gosh, did he have the guts to do something like that even recently? No, he did not. He's hot stuff in his own mind now, I think.
Interesting.
And then they have their conversation, which is one of my favorite from the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That's actually the conversation I alluded to at the beginning of this show.
Yeah.
One of the best. Yeah.
And she just very coldly, very plainly gives him the party line. Well, we found evidence of outside agitators. And he knows that's bull.
She's lying to his face.
And he knows it. He's been there. He's been on the ground. He's been talking to everybody. And so he accuses her of keeping him in the dark, and then goes ahead and he even uses the word nonsense. This is nonsense. What am I doing here? What are we doing here? In other words, what is going to happen? And so already you can tell he is fearing the worst of some kind, whatever the worst is. And then she tells him to go home and pack, confirming it's a setup to him. She's like trying to play to what he has heretofore always responded to by saying, "We'll be rewarded, we'll be together," and that's all Syril's ever wanted, ever, right? And so she knows him so well. She says that, but he's evolved past that. He says, "For what? What have we accomplished?" And then she tells him to be careful, very sternly. And I love the long pause then, and he says, "Me?" It's just such a, and you probably have another 10 minutes to talk about it, because on so many levels, it's so powerful. Now he can't trust her. Now he thinks the entire reason for his being there was a sham. He feels like he was a pawn. I
don't know that he feels that yet. Well,
maybe not as a pawn, but the look on his face.
I would say the word you're looking for is betrayed.
Yeah.
All right, start the clock. We'll see what I have to say. I do have a lot to say, because this is my favorite conversation of the entire episode, followed by Mon Mothma's conversation with the senator, although for very different reasons.
Sure.
What I think is great about this is that the veneer, Daedra, is wrapped tighter than her hair. And I think I'm confident that is one of the reasons for the hairstyle she has, because she's so uptight and focused, laser myopically focused on ascending in her career, which is what Partagaz ascribes to give her a peace of mind. The fact that he keeps saying, "What are we doing here? What is the point?" I think when she kisses him, that's one of the most important scenes in the entire series, either season, because I feel like that kiss is multifaceted. One, it's a desperate attempt to try to assuage him to give up this crusade, because he is a crusader through and
absolutely.
Through. To dissuade him from this crusade, remind him that he loves her and that they can be together. And she doesn't strike me as someone who's very shows her love language is not touch. We'll say that.
Yeah.
But in that brief moment, he like literally is shocked. He shakes. It's a great bit of acting, but it's also, I think, desperation and fear. I think in that brief moment, we see she loves him in her own way. She does not want to lose him, and she doesn't want him to die.
Yeah.
She knows when everybody's showing up what's going to happen. And he's the kind of guy, he doesn't sit on the sidelines. He is someone that gets involved. Syril gets involved. When he thinks he's got the right mission, and we'll see that later, of course, in the series, he is pedal to the metal, man. It doesn't matter if Smokey is chasing him. He's getting in his Trans Am. That's a nice little 70s reference for everyone.
I love it.
So it's just so rich, because there's so much anger and frustration, because he's starting to realize he's a pawn. He's starting to realize she is keeping things from him, which I think he's known all along, but he hasn't really fully lent into. And when he goes to talk with the leader of the resistance, whose name is suddenly escaping me right now. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Well, he talked to his daughter.
Very briefly. and
Yeah.
she slaps him.
Yes.
She slaps him. It's Carl Rylands is the father.
Right.
And
I don't remember her name.
I've got StarWars.com pulled up right here. So oh, here we go. It's Enza.
Enza. Okay.
Enza slaps him. Why do you think Enza slaps him?
Well, he presents to her like I have an idea to get us out of this before it gets too serious, or however he phrased it, right? And it's I think she and most of the others, with the exception of her father, and we can talk about that at this point, who seems to be ahead of the rest of them in just where this might be heading.
Yeah, one-way ticket to Nowheresville.
Right, and I think she.
I think she's mad. I think she feels like he's lying to her. I feel like she thinks he's a part of it. He's not.
Right.
He runs to her to try to get her to like.
Right. Exactly.
Get away. We got to get away. I can get us out of this. She slaps him. She thinks he's lying to her. That's
like you're trying to get us to quit.
You're trying to get us to be killed.
Well, right. Or at least to knock it off. And we're not going to knock it off. We're the Ghor, and we have a point to be made here. And that's right. I mean, he just doesn't have the credibility with her that he thinks he does.
No, and not to mention the fact that Syril has traded in Edie, his overbearing mother, for someone who is controlling him in a very different way, in a much more dangerous way.
Yeah.
And
well said.
And that's that's hard. I really think in his heart of hearts, and I've thought this from the beginning, he thinks he's doing the right thing. He thinks he's fighting for the right side, but he's saying, hey, there's no demolition. There was no explosion. That's not true. We're the Empire. Why are we acting like this? Why are we doing this to these people? I think that when he works with the resistance, Enza and her dad, Caro, he sees them as people. He's starting to see, look, insurgents, people who are against the Empire, are not just these little scavengers or monsters. Like, these are human beings. What are we doing to these people? I think he's starting to fall for these people. I think he's starting to understand the plight of the Ghormans and what the Empire is doing. And then seeing that his wife, who's put him in this position, is using him. That's the carbonation. That's the fizz you and I talked about. It's just such good storytelling. It's marvelous. It's absolutely marvelous. We haven't seen anything like this in Star Wars. We haven't. And that's not an insult. It's a different way to tell a story, a more sophisticated way to tell a story. This is I think I may have said this earlier when you were on, but this is the closest we've ever come to Charles Dickens writing something Star Wars related, because of the complexity of the characters. And if you don't believe me, then you need to read A Tale of Two Cities, because believe me, it's got the Andor vibes.
Yeah, I think you had brought that up, but being more specific about A Tale of Two Cities, I see the point. I do. Let's the next scene.
Yeah,
we're into the Senate, and I know you want to talk about that conversation. Let me just talk about a little snippet before the conversation.
Yeah,
which I just loved, and it's an added level of realism to the society that we get in Andor that you kind of don't get anywhere else. And that's, I mean, Mon Mothma arrives, you have the whole thing with the driver and you can't trust him and all that stuff. And as she's walking in, there's all these news reports. It's like, it's sort of a cornucopia of news reports you hear.
Yes.
And they're in the background. It's so almost like the soundtrack at that time. It's just a beautiful touch. All different channels, if you will, about the terrible thing that happened on Thing and Things. Thing being the day before, attack on a naval base, and just in general, all the things the Ghor are doing, and it's just all propaganda. So it just shows you very subtly, and just for a few seconds, like what everyone on Coruscant is hearing in their 24-hour news cycle. I say 24 hours. I don't know what the orbital cycle of Coruscant is, but in a day.
You don't?
Yeah. but it shows how an empire has to operate, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep pounding the message in place that whatever you hear, we're the good guys and these others are the bad guys. And it's just a great little touch about how the Empire does that, at least on Coruscant.
Yes. Well, the senator is Dassi Oren. He is the senator for the Ghorman people, and you see here his fear. He realizes, I wish we could go back in time. I wish we could do something and see this happening. He knows his people are about to be exterminated. He just has a sense. I mean, everybody can see it. This is the great purpose of this entire season. Mon Mothma's concern, and the moment when he says to her, he thanks her for her grace. There's another term he uses that I did not write down, but grace was the one that stood out to me. Do you have it?
He said constant courage.
Courage, yes. And the fact that she is fighting the good fight and trying to help the Ghorman people, and he knows like he's in a place where he can't vote against Palpatine because that is bad. That's not going to work. That is not going to work. And it's startling because again the emotion. What is at risk? What is at play? Again, this does such a great job of building to this really scary situation that we know is going to happen. And I feel like it's really represented well earlier in the episode when the resistance of Ghorman is meeting. You've got Drina, you've got Enza, you've got I'm trying to think of the actor in the Ghorman front that is the most outspoken. He's a larger man. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Lazine. Lazine, as we've seen him, has been a bit of a outspoken, almost somewhat of a bully. But here, in this beautiful moment, he's the voice of reason. He tries to instill some patriotic pride, basically saying, we're the Ghor. Do we attack? Do we lay down? Whether we come out with rifles or we put rose petals on the road, we have to remember we are the Ghor. Because what they keep doing is making it to such a degree that they're fighting against themselves. Carl keeps saying, we've let them get under our skin. And that's another thing that they have done. It's like they're the ants. I don't know why I keep using bugs as a metaphor. I was just outside. Maybe that's why. And they're using that to pinpoint. They've been rattled and shaken to the degree that they've turned on one another, and the Empire's doing everything they can. It's scary. This is scary stuff.
Well, and in that conversation, it becomes clear to me that Caro, that's Rylance, the sort of the elder statesman of the group, he's arguing for more peaceful agitation at that point.
Yep.
And everybody else is like beside themselves. This has gotten us nowhere. It's not going to get us anywhere. He seems to grasp that they're being manipulated into action. That a provocation is what the Empire is hoping for. So, and immediately before that, when the Ghorman senator is speaking to Mon, he uses the term point of no return.
Yep.
This all goes to the idea that everybody who is truly in the know, not the regular citizen of the Empire, but everybody who's truly in the know is just knows this is something bad's going to happen. This is not good, and it's already probably gone too far.
It's also an example, as I like to say to my students, show, don't tell. This is show, don't tell storytelling. They're not spelling it out. They're while we're seeing these diplomatic solutions are not working, we see what's going on with Yavin 4th Rebellion taking shape. Cassian sort of fighting within himself a little bit. And then Bix lovingly pushing him to embrace who he is. You're more than just a pilot. You're more than a soldier. Embrace this part of self. There's so many lovely things. I don't know that I have anything specific because the main things we pointed out are great. Cassian goes back. He meets the clerk at the hotel who kind of winkingly shows, hey, I recognize you, dude. I know what's going on here. And then it kind of ends abruptly. And this is another example of why I wish this came out once a week instead of 3 a week.
Yeah.
Because the way they could have built suspense and tension here, astronomically important and incredible. Like, again, it's not hyperbole, but we're not going to see storytelling like this for a long time. And it's just so beautifully done. I mean, I'm ready to give my letter grade, but if there's certain things you want to talk about, by all means.
There's one more thing.
Yeah.
But let me agree with you first that I say this not sadly, but I don't think we'll ever see Star Wars like that will surpass this. I think we are right now, and over the past few months, we've seen, and I'm lucky enough to re-examine some of this stuff with you. I'm honored to see the best. I mean, Star Wars far better than I could have ever imagined that we would see.
Agreed.
The one other thing I wanted to say or ask you about.
Yeah.
When after the whole Force healer discussion,
sure,
and it seems clear that Cassian's shoulder is starting to feel better, and he and Bix are talking. They have a long scene, discussing it. You go through his fear and everything. Actually, no, I'm getting that wrong. It's at the end of the scene with the Force healer and Bix, and the Force healer says, he's basically is saying, I feel like he's well, let me write down, like, he's destined to be somewhere. He's supposed to be somewhere.
A messenger. He's a messenger.
A messenger. And then says, there is some place he needs to be. And then he asks her, well, have you known him for a long time? And she says, I don't remember a time when I didn't know him. And then the Force healer says, well, maybe you're the place he needs to be. There's a moment there that kind of drags a little bit out where the camera just focuses on Bix after that is said. And normally that would be maybe happy news, but for her, she's not happy. She looks sad.
Yeah.
I thought that was brilliant because it seemed to me that Bix knows better.
Yeah. She knows better than this Force healer here.
Yeah.
Which is weird, which is complicated. And I hadn't thought of it that way until you just explained it. I remember thinking, okay, how can I make sense of this? How is she the place for him? She's certainly someone who guides him, and she helps him to heal here. He doesn't get his shoulder fixed without her encouraging this to happen or facilitating this to happen. She has been there for him, and she helps to keep him grounded. Who knows if he even stays in this rebellion without her, but I don't know. I need to think about that some more because you're right. She does feel differently about it, or at least she acts differently about it, as we'll talk about next week.
You can tell she buys into the notion that he needs to be somewhere.
Yep.
And I see doubt and sadness on her face if the with her is where he's supposed to be.
Yeah. Because she knows that she ultimately is only going to hold him back because he's just going to worry about her. But yet it doesn't keep him from doing these missions. You know what I mean? But I don't know. It's a little, it's, I don't know. It's a bit of a head scratcher, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have it any other way. I really wouldn't. I really wouldn't.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is...
I love that so much. Well, John, as always, you've certainly given me a lot to think about, but I want to know what your letter grade is for Messenger.
Well, I takes no great shakes to understand. I give this an A based on, and so much of it is dialogue in this episode, but it's all so important and all so interesting and all such the benefit of what they've built up over the original first season and the first 6 episodes of this season, that every time there is an important discussion, there's all this backstory and all these things that go into it it makes it just fascinating. And I give it an A.
Yeah, this is an A+. I mean, again, as we've said, this entire episode, good luck finding a better, well-told story.
Yeah.
And there's no action in it. There's no fighting. There's no thrill. There's no suspense. There's just tension and this is a very talky one. I'm trying to think of the guy who wrote The Social Network. He did The West Wing. Who's the actor?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
I do, and his snappy dialogue is his thing.
Yeah, it's his thing. And he advances the plot. You're completely compelled by the conversation. Gee whiz. I know I could look it up if only I had access to a Google machine. But, we're just live podcasts that we're recording. But that's what it's like, right?
Yeah.
That is what it is like. It's incredibly authentic. It's compelling. You care so much about what is happening with these characters because of the crispness of the dialogue, the performances, and just sort of how it works together. Aaron Sorkin. Aaron Sorkin is the screen. This is the Aaron Sorkin level of dialogue where you're completely compelled. And it's only going to get better, friends. It's only going to get better. John, it always gets better when I get to talk to you, buddy. I hope you've had a great summer. I've certainly enjoyed chatting with you about this. Love to have you back on any time to talk about more episodes of Andor. Is it still true that you are waiting in the Coffee with Kenobi bunker for messages to come your way from our listeners?
Well, I through you, sure, great. I'm happy to talk to anyone about Andor, and I should say, just as something you alluded to before, it's kind of too bad the way these were packaged, and the way they came out bundled, the way they are. I think the time between episodes, when it's sort of in your brain and your brain is working on them, would have been very valuable. Yes. It's nice that we can go back now and go through that together, but most people didn't get that benefit, and I think that's kind of too bad.
I very much agree, and that's why we have these conversations like this, because we want to let it marinate, and so that we can really bring it to the forefront, because there's, as much as we talked about, there's still so much more to come.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here.